Okay, right, so here is my little paint can stove. It's made out of a pint can, the small one. For a fire grate inside, I basically took a bunch of some galvanized wire and basically wove it in there, if you will. I didn't feel like cutting out a piece of hardware cloth and finding a way to suspend it, so I just did it with wire, and it's good enough. It's probably not the lightest. Along the bottom here we have the primary intake hole for primary combustion, and along the top is a row of secondary combustion holes. And some point along the way I decided I needed a second row of secondary combustion holes, so I added a lower row that I don't know if it made a real difference, but I feel better about it when there's less wood in the thing. It's getting some more air right there. I'm not sure it's beneficial. In 3 points along here, 120 degrees apart, or at 120 degrees out, is I riveted on some little washers that I use as my windscreen support. My windscreen sits on like that, and then the actual windscreen sits on there. So I get neither cold air from the bottom up nor from the side with the wind. Again, a measurable benefit, not sure. I tried playing the little S-hook thing and setting this on a couple of S-hooks, and I just prefer this method. Not better, not worse. Same deal. This little ring around here that sticks up a little bit is just a soup can that happens to fit down inside where the lid would fit. I cut it and rolled it in on itself so it wouldn't have a sharp edge, and that gives something to for my pot support not to run into, so it doesn't fall off. On the base here, I use a quart can lid for the base. Makes a little wider base and adds a second layer of heat shielding, but it still gets really hot. Don't fool yourself. It's not like a Bush Buddy where you can pick this thing up when it's operating. Another thing I've found is if you don't sort of dent in the center of this can some and dent that one out a little bit, when they do get hot, they tend to bulge out, and this thing gets to rocking on there. Not a good thing when your dinner's at stake. For a pot support, I'm just using some coat hanger that goes into some little 1/4-inch tubing. Stuff it up in there, you bend it over so it can't come out, all except for one. It's got one free leg, and it can be stowed like this. Fits down the side of there. Everything stows pretty decently, and then fold it out. Put the free leg in the hole, sit it down on top, and it ends up being a pretty decent support, and I can still get wood in when my pot's sitting on top. I can still feed it. That seems to work alright as well. For the dual wall, once again, I've got some little washers riveted on the side for a support for the windscreen, and then cut out a hole. This was a can of pears. Cut out the hole so it fits over that, cut it to length, slide her on, instant double wall. It could probably stand to be a skosh shorter down here to expose those holes a little better, but it seems to be fine as it is. This takes a different windscreen because this is a different can, I reckon. But same principle, that sits on there, this sits on here, and this goes on that, and off you go. Having built a number of stoves at this point, and I have a Bush Buddy Ultra as well, I can't seem to get anything to work better than the Bush Buddy, and I can't seem to get the Bush Buddy to work better than anything I've built. This single wall stove, I can boil the same amount of water in the same amount of time with this as I can with my Bush Buddy, and I can boil the same amount of water in effectively the same amount of time. Actually, I haven't done it with this particular one, but when I've made one of these with the soup can for the combustion chamber and the pint can for the outside, it all seems to be about the same. So there doesn't seem to be a measurable benefit to the single wall, double wall when you're down on this scale of stove. If I was willing to carry around a 5-gallon bucket and make a stove on that sort of scale, I'll bet you I could see a measurable difference. And in fact, for sure, it would be a batch load, fire it once and it'd burn and boil all the water I could stand. But with these, I do a batch load at the beginning, light it on the top, let it burn down, and then I'm just chucking it in as required to keep it alive. So, it's a bit fidgety. There's a lot of you're actively cooking, I guess. It's not just turn it on, set it, and forget it. But they're fun little stoves, and maybe in a little bit I'll take it outside and show you the difference of how it seems to burn with double wall or single wall. With the single wall, the flames are coming up outside of this these secondary combustion holes, and it's just a little more confused and not quite so smooth flame pattern. And then you put the double wall on, and the flame pattern gets a lot more consistent and pretty, but I can't say that it's hotter or better. It's just different. So I'm on the fence as to whether or not there's any benefit to me carrying this extra piece of equipment around when I'm out backpacking.